What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I am joined with the one and only Simon Parks. Now, I haven't seen Simon in a long time. It's been, geez, I think we did a show together a couple of years ago, and or maybe longer. Could have been longer,
Yeah,
but
it was.
it was longer, yeah. But time flies. Simon, I really want to welcome you on the show. It's a lot of people have been asking about you. I've been wondering about what's going on in the mind of Simon. So I appreciate you coming on.
Well, first of all, thank you. Lovely to be back talking to you. And just for the audience, before we went live, we were both talking about how we were pushed off YouTube and how it made a big impact on everyone who was trying to tell the truth. And yeah, 4 years ago, I was kicked off, slung off. So yeah, Rumble, BitChute, and my own site for my own audience. So we've had to survive.
You had a massive following on YouTube. Like you said, your videos were getting 1, 2, 3 million views at a time. I mean, this
Yeah.
was incredible. And then all of a sudden they hit the brakes and kicked you off and kicked a lot of people off and throttled a lot of people back. And what was the reason that you got that the reason they kicked you? Yeah, go ahead and tell my audience. This is insane.
Yeah, the reason that YouTube gave me for being kicked off was I mentioned President Trump too many times.
I guess, and I'm seeing it now with my algorithm, to be quite honest with you. So their antics are still there. I don't even know, on all my platforms, Instagram, I got bombed on Facebook. My Instagram got shadow banned. It's hellacious. I'm starting to see a little bit of improvements now because I think they're in a frozen pattern. I think they're on hold right now. They don't know what to do because Trump is moving so fast. And I think that, after they suffered this shell shock of defeat in the election, I've said this to other guests, they really thought, and I want to get your perspective on this. They really thought they were going to win this election, not fairly, but unfairly. They really thought they had it in the bag when it comes to cheating, but we stopped them in real time, correct?
Well, twice because of the general elections, the in-betweeners as we call them in Great Britain. But basically in 16, Hillary Clinton and the team thought they'd won because they thought they'd done enough. But the huge surge for Trump was so great that it overcame the problems. And what happened in the last election, although it's not widely discovered, is he actually took a bit of a hand to pare back some of the corruption. So they still tried it. They thought, my own view on the recent general election was I think that they thought it was going, the Democrats or the deep state thought it was going to go to the wire and they were going to use the courts to prevent Trump getting in. So they had planned that it would just be a few thousand votes. Think back to was it Bush? I remember. What
Oh,
20 years
Gore
ago?
and Bush.
Gore, yeah, that was the
Yeah.
hanging chads. But I think they thought something similar, and when Trump just took all the seven swing states, they just gave up. They literally gave up at that point.
So obviously, we saw that Trump upset the apple cart with Hillary. He got in, and it was almost like he was able to learn the deep state even further and really learn the characters in his administration. And then 2020 happens, and they cheat big enough to take it. Now, what's your perspective on that? In 2020, did they just cheat big enough to take it, or did the White Hats let them cheat? Were we trying to keep Trump in there, or did we say, you know what, let him have it and let the public see let the public get red pilled, let the public see what it's like with a Biden administration. That way, when we come back in 2024, we clean house. What's your perspective? Why did they win 2020? Did we let them win? You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? I guess it's a
Yeah,
loaded
but I'll
question.
go back to the earlier question or point that you
Okay.
brought forward, as I don't quite share the same view that is generally accepted.
Okay.
I don't see the first Trump administration as uh, chaotic and the second administration more organized. I don't swallow that. I think the first administration was exactly what it was supposed to be, bringing in bad guys close to Trump who were given the opportunity to change sides and didn't. Now look at Milley. Okay, look at Milley. Here was a guy, chief guy, who had the opportunity to stand with Trump and didn't. So I don't see it that way. I see what Trump did was he was already showing the public all the people around him. So that's the first thing.
So
This last
exposing,
four, pardon?
exposing, like he was exposing them to the public, letting people see them.
Yeah, but he was also exposing them back to their backers, the people who were backing them secretly. So with Mike Pence had to make a choice on that fateful day. What was he going to do? Was he going to accept the votes that came in or not? Which side of the fence was he really on? So I don't see the first administration as confused. I see it as very much part of the plan.
Part of the operation.
Yes, totally, absolutely. Trump is not an idiot. Biden's an idiot, but Trump is not an idiot. And so the second operation, what we've got now, is because 95% of the, just call them the enemy, have either joined him or been removed or just gone into the shadows. At his inauguration speech, President Trump referred to some elite people, one of them, of course, the chief executive of Hollywood, whose house was burnt down, and people who didn't really understand what was going on. Why would they? They were saying, "What's going on? Why are the bad guys' houses being burnt down?" The reality was and is that over these 4 years that Trump has been officially out of office, a lot of these big players have secretively made overtures to the Trump campaign and said, we want to come back or we want to join. And as retribution, the bad guys hit people who used to be on their side but had jumped ship. And that's why you've got ambassadors. Trump has got 3 ambassadors to Hollywood. What's that about? And the chief executive of Hollywood was actually invited to the inauguration speech when Trump was talking. And he says, and he's very clever, you've got to pick his words up. And Trump says, well, I've got people here who are homeless from California. And then Trump says, there's a gap. And he says, what's all that about? So there's been a massive plan to bring us to where we are now. I'm not going to say it's gone like clockwork because there have been problems, but by and large, they did it. To this
So
point.
where do you see us now? Like where we're at now? So we could successfully call this the second Trump operation. Is this going to be
Yep.
cleanup now? Is this where he exposes all the funding,
No,
all the federal
not
agencies?
really.
Okay.
No, because I know I'm not going to upset anybody. I don't want to upset anybody. But the point is that a lot of people have been saying, there was going to be a stock market crash, there was going to be an EBS, this Trump, that. The reality was that once Trump was back in on this second operation, if you've got control of the ship, why do you need to go and turn it upside down? You don't. And there was a lot of talk about Elon Musk has taken out $4 million and he's going to put these adverts on the Super Bowl telling everybody that there's corruption.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
heard the same
not,
thing.
yeah, that's not going to happen. It's none of that. What I wanted to tell you is, some of them may know, I don't, was that I want to give an example in Britain before digital control had really taken over. Something like 30, 40 years ago, there was a local, what you would call a state election in London. And the people who'd been in power, the results were given out. And 1 minute past midnight, the opposition had taken control by one vote. And what they did was they got loads of guys who were locksmiths. They were good with locks. They picked all the locks 1 minute past midnight in the town hall, got in, opened the filing cabinets, went through everything before the old administration could shred it. Now we've moved on now, we're in digital. And so using Space Force, using a lot of Tesla's experts from the space program himself, they were able to access all of what they, I've got to be so careful what I say, they were able to access before they even physically went into any of these buildings. So they knew where all the money had gone, who had it, where it was going for. And the bad guys who were expecting a proper subpoena or people turning up were within 1 hour, all of the information from certain departments was where it should be. And when the judges in the United States put stops on Trump doing it, it didn't matter because within 1 hour of it, they've got it. So this is 4 years in the planning. And it's this that's thrown the deep state because there's money. Again, I've got to be very careful, but there's money that was given for hurricane relief, which found its way to China, which found its way to South America. So, but Trump knows all about that. So the baddies are in real trouble because what they thought was uncrackable codes have been cracked. And that's why, if you think about it, nobody in the Senate or the House is going to block any of Trump's picks because he's got so much on them as individuals.
Wow. So this really was, I look at like someone like Mayor Eric Adams, right? And then now I see the charges going against Kathy Hochul and Letitia James. From the get go, I was like, oh, this guy's getting off. He's getting off too easy. He gave up some names. He gave out the dirt, and I think he was reined in. I'm pretty sure he was interrogated, and he gave up the dirt on a lot of people. Would you see that as probably most likely? That's really the operation that's happening behind the scenes, right? I mean, these people are being reined in, talked to, and said, sell this person out. We'll let you go on this. We'll let you go on that. Right? Is that what's happening behind the scenes?
Yeah, they're actually being offered jobs. They're actually being offered a career. You see, if you say to somebody, you tell us everything you know, we'll just let you go. That doesn't really offer an American the future. But if you say you do what we want and you're going to have a career with us, and that's the difference. That's what's happening.
So they say, okay, this is who we really want.
Yep.
These are the people we're after. Sell them out, and we'll even make you look like a hero.
Yes.
We'll separate you from Diddy. Diddy will go down. But what's your thoughts on that anyway? I know Eric Adams is highly connected to P. Diddy. What's your thoughts on that? Diddy, where does Diddy play in all this?
Right. I'm not going to get drawn on that because often people who are perceived as bad are double agents.
Right, right. Yeah. Okay. Got you. I got you on that. Point taken. So everything that's happening right now, Simon, the infrastructure of the deep state, it looks like to me is crippled. It's done.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
we've stopped all their funding. It looks like, I mean, if you just look at the southern border, the human trafficking, the cartels. I mean, I live on the border, so I'm here in El Paso, and I hear the whispers on both sides of the border. I know what's going on, and I'm going to tell you right now, their veins and arteries to come into this country are now just been stopped completely. That is their henchmen, the cartel. Cartel were the ones that did their dirty deeds, a lot of them, and now
Yeah.
USAID is looking into all the funding, the useless spending for the agencies. They're showing that to the public. What move does the deep state make now? I mean, where are they right now? Are they just
Doesn't.
now?
No,
Okay,
it
so
doesn't. I mean,
go
what
ahead.
I shared with my group, and I always share information with my group first because they've joined my organization. Remember, it's free. I know it's not very American, but people don't pay to be part of my organization. It's free. It's crazy, isn't it? But I can tell you something. I can tell you something that I told my group a few days ago, and I don't think anyone else has got this on the internet. I don't believe so. And if they have, I apologize that they have, but have a good look and see that what you said is very, very important, which is on one hand, you have in Mexico, you have a president and you have a police force, and they operate at one level. But then you have what you had in the 1930s, shall we say, in Chicago. You have a very well organized mafia group in Mexico. What changed was a secret phone call. I won't say who from or to who to, but a secret phone call from someone in America to someone in Mexico that said, you have 48 hours to do what we want, or the 101st and the 82nd Airborne will be put down on the border. So they actually threatened the 101st and the 82nd Airborne to be used to go in and fight the cartels. Leave the government alone, but literally to fight street fighting. And within 6 hours of that threat, Mexico moved in a certain way, which allowed diplomatic moves to be made.
And 10,000 of their military is up right now to the border to stop the
There's
drug
there,
trafficking.
right there was already 15,000 Mexican equivalent of National Guard, but they were told just to turn a blind eye. They've now been told to do the job properly, and an additional 10,000 have been put with that. So there's 25,000, which is what you need. 15,000 was never enough, but you've got 25,000 doing a real job because the airborne crack units of the airborne American forces were prepared to airdrop.
But that didn't happen. That did not happen. We've given them a month.
It didn't need to happen,
Right.
because everybody knows Trump says what he means. If Trump says something, or one of his spokespersons says it, and it's, it can be got back to him. If you're saying it, he means it. It's like the Panama Canal. I mean, he means it, and that's what these stupid Western leaders have got to understand, that they're dealing with somebody who really has got all the aces in his hand. And so he doesn't need to play poker in that sense of the word. He just says, unless you do it, I'm going to put this card down on the table.
So what's your thoughts of Claudia Sheinbaum? So to me, I know she was a globalist plant. She's controlled by the cartels. What happens to her? Because, I mean, now that she's doing what Trump says and playing ball with Trump, does she live throughout the year? I mean, does she make it to the end of the year? Because they're not going to tolerate that. What do the cartels do at this point with Claudia Sheinbaum?
Well, they'll do what they're told.
You think the cartels will do what they're told?
Absolutely, the cartels will do what they're told.
So you think this is it? They're done?
Yes. If your empire works on protection rackets, it's on child trafficking, it's on drugs, and someone says to you, we're about to drop 12,000 elite paratroopers and hunt you all down, you change. Now, okay, it might only be for another 4 years. Let's see what happens in 4 years' time with the general election in America. But what I'm saying at the moment is the cartels, for their own survival, have got to go down into the holes, because otherwise they have no future. So that's what
no chance in them retaliating at all.
Why would they? Do they really want to be invaded? Because the other thing is that, what are these tariffs on Canada? What are these tariffs for? And the key that, again, most commentators are not picking up is that if you are part of America, you don't pay tariffs. So if Canada was to become part of America,
51st state,
there is no tariffs. Now, I don't believe Canada will become the 51st state, but I think what will happen, there's got to be an election in Canada, as you know. There will be an economic agreement between the United States and Canada, which will remove some of those tariffs, but it will draw Canada very closely into the American fold. Now, the same is going to be offered to Mexico. Mexico will also be offered, so that America protects its north boundary and its southern boundary.
So you do see Mexico as, that was my next question, you do see Mexico potentially being absorbed by the United States?
I don't think the Mexicans would like the word absorbed. I think coming under economic protection from the United States would be a really good way to put that.
So is it almost like the North American Union is going to happen no matter what? You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's happening anyway.
Yeah, bless it. No, because Canada contains French speakers and English speakers. Okay, you've got Quebec and you've got Montreal, two cities predominantly speaking different languages. You can't treat Canada like that. When there was always the elections, do you keep the Queen of England when she was Queen here? The British lot, the English lot would say yes, and the French-speaking lot would say no. The reality is that you can only do an economic deal with Canada. You can't bring Canada really in. But this was Trump playing heavy politics with Canada, saying, you choose. And I was doing the same with Mexico.
So how is Britain right now reacting to Trump win? I mean, how is that affecting Britain, the UK right now where you're at? Like, what are you noticing? What are you hearing?
Um, that's a very difficult question because America, um, Great Britain doesn't have the government in office that America wants. So the previous government destroyed itself. We now have a different government, which I predict will destroy itself. And then in some years in the future, there will be a different government that's never been government before. And that will be the government that America wants. So at the moment, look, I give you, I won't say who it was, but it was a key Trump during the actual election, a chief Trump campaign manager said, and I quote, there's only one thing worse than the British Conservative Party. That's the British Labour Party. So what will happen with Britain is it's a very difficult tightrope because on one hand, the number of American assets, military assets in Great Britain is huge. It's more than Australia. The importance of Great Britain to America is massive. So they don't want to lose any of that. But at the same time, America wants a government that is not frightened of capitalism. At the moment, we have a government which is a very socialist government, and that does not sit well with Americans generally. So I would suggest that on the world stage, everything looks really nice and rosy, but underneath, I think America will be chipping away quite substantially.
I just had a guest on yesterday, actually. His name is Raja Mia. Do you know who he is? He's
No.
out there in the UK anyway. He's exposing the Labour Party's funding to certain politicians that are funding the Muslim rape gangs that are targeting children, white children. Um, and he says the corruption is so deep, it's within all of the government, it's within the police force, it's everywhere. And he's exposing this. His life has been threatened multiple times. What do you have to say about that? I mean, I mean, America and the UK are probably the two worst when it comes to human trafficking, wouldn't you say?
No, I can't make that comment. I think that there are other countries which are worse.
Okay.
If you're saying to me that the
Consumers, the biggest consumers, maybe. Would that be the right way to put it?
nope, I would say that the command and control is in Great Britain and America, or was, but I
Okay.
would say that the final destination, a lot of these individuals, is not necessarily America or Britain. This is one of the things that Elon Musk got involved with. You may remember he took to X and he took to other social media, and he was saying some pretty strong things about the British current Prime Minister, and they were involved, and that was deliberate. That wasn't a mistake. That was a shot across the bows of the British Prime Minister saying, "We know what's going on, and we have the power to do this, that, and the other." So it's a very hot political topic in Britain.
So where is the final destination? You said it's not the final destination. Where is the final destination?
Do you mean for the world, or Britain, or America?
For the world.
Must be a group of countries led by men and women who actually care about the people who elect them. In other words, people who create a constitution, listen to what the people say, stop aggrandizing themselves, and start trying to help everyone in their communities and to uphold the law. And once we get governments throughout the world to do that, then we've got a better place. Remember, your audience probably don't know. I'm an ex-politician. I am an ex, elected, what they say, and they call them lawmakers. And I was pretty successful in terms of election and being re-elected. But I left. I wasn't got rid of. I left because I'd reached a point. I always said to myself every morning, almost, as long as I can do more good than bad being pressed down on me, I'll keep doing this. But when the time comes where I've hit ceiling and I
Yeah.
can't do any more good. I want to go. And that's what I did. I waited at the end of election, didn't we stand? So I look on things not as a commentator. I'm an experiencer from, many things. Um, but I also am an ex-politician. So I'll look at something and I understand the politics. Again, your audience might know that my mother worked for, the National Security Agency. My grandfather worked for the CIA.
Wow.
So, they were both British. So one had to work for MI5 and was
But
then
that's what
managed by, that's
but
what they do.
all the three-letter agencies are kind of like there's a global alliance between them, right? They all work together, obviously.
The Five Eyes do. Yeah, the Five Eyes do. Some of the other countries don't. The English speaking world certainly does. The other non-English speaking world, they share information, but like hours after they get it. With the English speaking nations, it's within a couple of minutes. That's the deal. When I had the tour of the secret radar base in Great Britain in 2013, the space radar base, which was supposed to be a British Royal Air Force base, I soon learned that it was American controlled. Yeah, there were Brits sitting manning the controls, but in the background were the Americans. And the audience might be surprised to know that when a UFO was detected, all the Brits had to get up, walk out of the control room. The Americans would come in, take control of the facility. When it was dealt with, they would go back and the Brits would come in. So that's what I meant by assets, American assets in Britain and Australia and New Zealand is huge. So America doesn't want to lose that side of it, but at the same time, it wants governments that it can trust. And that's where we're aiming for. The second phase of Trump's plan is governments that he can trust.
So now that we're into this second phase of Trump and it's playing out the way it is, it's like there's the shell shock from losing the election, and now he's just like I always use boxing analogy because that's what I know. But he's coming in with a barrage of punches, taking them out now. It's like he's got that killer instinct, and now it's just going dun 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 dun, and they just don't know what to do. There's nowhere to hide. It's almost like looking at like rats in a maze where you've cut off all the exits and you're just watching them scurry in this maze where nowhere to go. That's how I see this playing out. What's their next moves? Is there just nothing left for them? Are we
They
just going to
don't
see
have
them
it.
to the?
They don't have it. This is the thing. When Trump was officially out of politics, when he wasn't the president officially, he was the commander in chief, but he wasn't the president. So many commentators, I'm not going to mention names, I just don't think that's useful, were saying, this terrible thing was going to happen, that terrible thing was going to happen, and it never did, of course. And
Yeah,
now
I've had
that
many
Trump
guests
won,
say that. I've had many guests come
okay,
on and say this is going to happen, that's going to happen. None of it
no,
happened.
no, it's BS, absolute BS. And the point here, I think, is that now that Trump is in, those same people have got nothing to fire up. So they're now, I've seen lots of stories of creating this and creating that. That's not going to happen.
And there's no
And
way to
it
fund
doesn't
it.
need to happen.
There's just their funding has been cut off, so they don't have the deep state money to
Right?
create these events or these
Yeah.
protests or anything. They're just going to die on the vine, I would imagine.
Well, that's another reason for the RV, for asset backing, gold backing, the greenback. Because if you do that, you can really trace and monitor from space through the Starlink system where gold is moving. And that will prevent any organization trying to do anything illicit. So, yeah, it's really impossible now for evil people to do anything outside of their own immediate network.
So do they just pull the plug? I mean, what do they do? Like, I mean,
They
is it going to be a
retire.
banking
No, they
collapse?
no, they retire. All the baddies will retire on all their
But they got
ill-gotten
to get. Well, we
gains.
got to see justice, Simon. People got to see justice.
But do we? Do we? You tell me why we've got to see justice.
People will demand it. People will demand it. At least here in America, we know who the bad actors have been exposed. People want to see
Right.
justice. We know about Obama. We know about Hillary Clinton. Everyone
Yeah,
knows
but
now.
right, okay, listen. I mean, I'm agreeing
Podesta.
with you. I'm totally agreeing with you, but I'm just from an ex-politician's point of view and the reality of the world. Let me put it this way: because I'm trying to interject world politics. America, up until a few days ago, was the policeman of the world. Not anymore. Trump's made that clear. However, when an American diplomat goes into a meeting, he or she is in a position to really influence that meeting. If you say that an American president, no matter who it is, was corrupt, was into pedophilia, and you do all that, no other country in the world will be told what to do by America. If America goes into a room, they'll say, don't you lecture us. Your president was found guilty of this, 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 and this. And it's for that reason that the truth that you're asking about won't ever come out.
I'm looking at Pam Bondi right now. She has put charges against Letitia James and who is it? Letitia James and Hochul, right?
Right?
So it looks to me like they're already moving forward with investigations, charges.
Yeah.
I seem to think that this looks like it's going in a direction that there's going to be people that are arrested.
Oh, there will, but not the very top. Not people that the whole world look at Great Britain. I am
So you don't
answering
see
your
like an
question.
Obama or Clinton being arrested.
Look at Great Britain. Your audience will be very clear of what the Queen of England was or was not responsible for. When did she go to court? When was she proved guilty? So here's my point. Somebody who is an icon, not just of a country, but of a culture, isn't going to be brought down because, and I've used this with my own group. I've talked about the candy store, where I've said there's a manager in a candy store with 12 staff. If you go in and you arrest the manager, half the staff don't come to work, the candy store doesn't make any money, and it collapses. But if you just go in and you say to the candy store manager, oh, you're being transferred, you're being retired, and here's the new man, the staff carry on, you still make money, the business operates. So whilst I understand, and I really do, that everybody wants justice and truth, and so do I, but the reality is that at certain level, it's not going to happen because the damage to the United States would be irreparable. And that's why the Queen of England never faced a single charge.
So when, like, my audience will be screaming right now, right? They're going to be saying, well, what about Gitmo? Gitmo's open. They're sending soldiers down there. They're deploying soldiers down there. They're taking in illegal immigrants, violent criminals.
Mhm.
It looks like it's setting the stage for politicians, especially after Pam Bondi being put in there as Attorney General. Kash Patel's coming in. I met with Kash Patel in Vegas. I went to go see his government gangsters. He's outlined everything and with the people that are. And I've asked him. I said, you know, where are we going with this? And he just smirked and smiled at me. I mean, he put together a whole documentary on the criminals that are going down.
Yeah, yeah, but there are certain people who have done deals. They're not going to go down because they've jumped ship. They are with
Eric
the good
Adams.
guys.
He's one of them.
They're with the good guys. So they're not going to go to get one. All right. There. Look at Gina, the ex CIA, who was caught in Frankfurt. Okay. And we lost some good men in that attack. Okay. She was transferred to Gitmo, and halfway there, she agreed to jump ship. So the airplane turned round halfway to Gitmo and came back again. So I understand people are getting hot under the collar, but it doesn't mean they're being betrayed. What it means is if Trump can pull something off that allows him to get access within days of something, other than this bloody route, which he may never get access to, he's going because he's a democratic leader. He's got 4 years in office. He's got 4 years to do this. He hasn't got time to waste. So if you've got the shortest route to get to the real key, you're going to do it. Because what Trump and the good guys want to do is to ensure the bad guys can never come back again under any guise at all. So Trump's plan is to destroy the need for these people the way they feed themselves with cash, their blackmail, all of that. He wants to destroy it, but he's only got 4 years to do it. So he will go for the shortest route. Might not be everyone's cup of tea, as we say in Great Britain, but he's got to do what he's got to do.
What's your thoughts on the Gaza situation with Netanyahu and what Trump said? We're going to make it a Riviera. What's your thoughts on this? I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of commotion and controversy surrounding this right now. I see it as a pretty clever chess move. I don't know where the Palestinians will go. I think maybe relocating him is the best bet, because staying there just, I think it's a for sure way to keep getting bombed, and they'll never be able to rebuild. So what's your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, the King of Jordan's going to take 2,000 sick children straight into his hospitals, and he's going to pay them. So that's a really good gesture for him, and sets the scene for others to move across. You've actually answered the question really well. For years and years, this area has been built up. It's made very nice, and then whoever's in charge lets the terrorists come back in. Terrorists fire missiles at Israel. Israel bombs it flat. Now, here's the key. Now, every time that's happened, America has come in and put billions of dollars into rebuilding. Now, this time, what America is saying is, we're not going to spend any of our money doing this. You're going to do it. So all the countries now are thinking, oh my God, $10 billion. That's the latest figure. They're not going to do that. So how about we move people to an area that their children can go to school without being shot and bombed, that no more rockets land on Israeli rooftops. And if you've got shops and offices and businesses in that area, they don't want terrorists. They can't have terrorists coming. So the
Right.
terrorist operation will just die. So all Trump's doing is saying very cleverly, I made my money in real estate. So let's throw this to the mainstream media and we'll use a real estate joke. So this is all about throwing the mainstream media right off their feet.
Last question. I won't keep you much longer. What's your thoughts on
Well,
the
I thought
whole?
we've only just started. Do you want to
Well, I want
go?
to bring you back for a second part, if
Well,
you're
how
able
long have
to.
we been talking for?
About 50 minutes. I got a
Oh,
bad
just
back, Simon.
bless
All
you.
right, let's keep going. Let's keep going if you can.
Put a stick down it and keep yourself firm. Go on, carry on.
All right, I want to talk to you about the UAPs and UFOs, the drones. Trump said he was going to get an answer on it. They basically said, well, it was just used for research. They're ours. That wasn't an answer to me, and a variety of reasons. They said that was no answer to me. What and we've always known that they were the deep state was getting ready to play the alien card. They're getting ready
Yeah,
to make that
yeah,
maneuver, right?
yeah.
Um, it's just kind of like it hit pretty big for a while, and then it just kind of dissipated, it vaporized. What
Yeah.
the hell happened? Did we just throw a monkey wrench in their plans? And now that
No,
Trump's in, they cannot play the alien card
no.
anymore. What's going to happen?
Oh,
What
that
kind of disclosure are we going to have?
right. What you saw wasn't coming from the black hats. All of that debate around drones and aliens was coming from the white hats, the good guys. Cast your mind back to Ronald Reagan when accidentally on purpose they allowed infrared cameras from space stations to really look at UFOs. And what did Reagan say? They're ours. Star Wars. So what you're being played back with is exactly the same thing. They're ours. So there's no change in the narrative. But the difference is that it's now being moved into the governmental mainstream. And all of the newspapers, TV channels are being told to be more um, polite regarding UFOs. In other words, you're not to attack them anymore. You've almost got to treat it seriously and debate it and do documentaries. So, what you're seeing and what you'll see a lot more of is a tacit agreement that there is life off the planet. And in terms of when will the public be told the truth, when the secret surveys that are done, particularly in America, they use X for it now. X is one of the reasons they got X was because they can map and model people's thinking. When enough people are not just believers in UFOs, but are not frightened by it, that's when they're going to disclose.
So X is going to be taking, I guess, is going to be absorbing all the funding that NASA used to. Are they going to run side by side simultaneously, or is X going to be now the new agency that takes us into space and beyond? I mean, or is NASA just going to die? Are we going to learn that too was also corrupt? I mean, which we know it is.
You can't because no, you can't because if you do that, then you've got to expose Operation Paperclip and how Von Braun and all the others moved into NASA and how they supposedly got all these tax dollars to go to the moon. They never went to the moon. All these tax dollars were used for underground bases. You can't give the truth away. It would destroy the confidence that Britain has in America or Australia has in America. But what you can do is use a certain spacecraft and just put a different label on it. So it might be someone's spacecraft and just put NASA on it.
What's your
But the
thoughts on
reality,
Elon? Okay, go ahead.
go on. No, it's okay. Go on.
No. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
So basically, what I'm saying is that doesn't preclude, it doesn't need to stop a much more advanced um, narrative that humans are not alone. And that's what I'm expecting to see in the next 4 years, a very, very big shift towards that.
You believe these beings are interplanetary or are they interdimensional?
Both.
So yeah, so it's a wide array of life basically coming from different dimensions, different planets. But this is the question I was going to ask you. Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
Elon Musk. Now, I've always heard he was DARPA funded. He was a black hat, and then he got reined in. I guess intercepted, maybe. What's your thoughts on Elon Musk? I mean, I've seen him wearing I've always believed this is a spiritual war, and I've seen him with a Baphomet costume in his profile pictures. I've seen him with a very confusing individual. I don't know how to read him, but I see that Trump has pulled him into his administration. Obviously, he's the head of Doge. What's your thoughts on Elon? Was he a black hat? Is he a gray hat? Is he a white hat? Is he a no hat? What the fuck is he?
Um, he is. I promise to answer your question, but it's one of the most complicated questions you've asked tonight. Elon Musk is an enigma to the mainstream media, and that's one of his greatest advantages. He is not human in the true sense of the word. He absolutely believes in President Trump. He absolutely believes in the Constitution, and he absolutely believes that he believes in God. Now, that's enough for me. That's good enough for me. And all of the crap that you quite rightly have put through is purely and simply to make people think and ask questions. For too long, Brits and Americans have been talked to like children by the deep state for years and years, ever since the 60s. Now they're not getting that dialogue in the ear, that secret message, and they're now seeing things and having to question and ask and wake up. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He has hundreds of generals who are around him supporting him, flag officers who have all signed up to this right back to Lincoln's time. And this is, if it's hard to follow, that's good. Because if we're finding it hard to follow, I can absolutely assure you that the bad guys do not know what's going on.
You said so I asked if he was a black hat, a white hat, a gray hat, but you said something that's I've got to stop you here, and we got to go back to this statement. You said that he may not be human, Elon Musk. That takes me to Val. Is it the Val Thor? There was an alien that worked for the U.S. government back in the day that was, or might still be working for the government. That was Philip Schneider has talked about many times. Is it Val Thor? What was it? I'm sorry, is that kind of like an Elon thing? I mean, are they both kind of the same thing? When you say Elon is not human, what do you mean?
That his history, you couldn't follow his history as you would through if you went and got a load of birth certificates and you checked it back, you'd have a problem with his.
So what are you implying?
Well, I'm
He's
not going to
off
say anything,
planet?
but I will say about Val Thor. There have been in the United States of America and in Russia non-human advisors for a number of years, both good and bad, who clearly didn't want to appear human in the sense of the word. They didn't want to actually appear too much in the camera. And those people um, really are different. But then you have another group of people who they pass for humans. They look all right, And I've met some of them who were, clearly not human, but they had two hands and two legs. But the reality is that this is just a spiritual war. It's not just a spiritual war. It's a war that takes in a lot more than that because the battle being fought on this planet decides what happens in other realms as well. So there's been a great interest in this planet, and there are a lot of um, intelligences, both good and bad, that want to, help the side they've chosen. And it was because of the gifting of quantum technology, which we shouldn't have at this time in our history, but that was gifted to the good guys, which allowed the good guys to outthink the best supercomputers that the baddies had. There are three main supercomputers. The CIA have one. Britain has one, believe it or not, and China has one. The difficulty with supercomputers is they need to be cooled. They need a lot of cooling. So some of them been put in the ocean, down there to do that. But a quantum machine communicates at the speed of light, which a supercomputer cannot. And therefore, a supercomputer can predict 6 months ahead, but a quantum computer can predict years ahead.
So
And so
that's
with
what the
this is why the White Hats have been able to upstage, and you have a lot of very intelligent audience, and they will know about the Enigma machine. They know that the Germans had a most amazing coding stroke decoding machine called the Enigma, and the Brits broke the code, but the Brits never told the Germans they broke the code, so they were always able to read it. So what is this working in reverse? What the good guys in America have been able to do is to know what the bad guys were doing before the bad guys even knew what they were going to do themselves. And that is why the baddies are on the back foot, largely because of that.
So we had access to the quantum supercomputers that they had no access to, and that is why we
Correct.
completely played chess so brilliantly.
Correct.
Interesting. Wow. That makes all the sense in the world to me. Is there looking glass technology? Is there other
Yes.
technologies that
Yes.
that
The CIA had looking glass technology, and unfortunately, like many of these technologies, it was trialed out by children, which is disgusting, disgraceful. But children were often used in a whole range of these operations.
why children?
Looking glass, because if you engage with children at a certain point, they have not yet been mind programmed with the matrix of the world. They still believe fairies at the bottom of the garden. They still believe in Father Christmas. And if a child or a person believes that, they can overcome the material matrix around us, and they can produce it. They can levitate chairs. They can make a drink pour from
Because
one
they
jug to
believe
another.
it.
Yes, and therefore they can do it.
That's incredible. So I've heard all roads lead to Antarctica. I've heard that that is the Nazi headquarters, let's say. I don't know what you would call it, the super headquarters for Nazis. I've heard that they really won World War II, that there was a secret surrender signed by Eisenhower, was it? Or was it Eisenhower that signed some kind of secret surrender?
Lots of questions. Um,
Well, we're already going
I'm glad.
there, and
I'm
you
glad.
wanted
I'm
to keep
glad
me
we did.
longer, so
No, I'm glad we did stop. Okay. No, Germany lost the war. Physically, Germany lost the war, but they survived to create a Fourth Reich. So my mother, who worked for the National Security Agency, was quite open about it that Hitler never died in Berlin. They got Hitler out. My grandfather, who obviously worked for the CIA, used to say, no, Hitler's not dead. And even Joseph Stalin, the president of Russia, said Hitler's not dead. That's all mainstream official stuff. So it wasn't about the gold. Hitler was allowed to take, when Hitler escaped, we won't go into huge detail, but they took all the torpedoes out of the submarine that he was in and they just filled it full of gold and treasure. That's how they stored it. And that's why in 1943, when it became obvious that Germany had lost the war, they created the new submarine that never had to surface. You may know, the audience may know, that it was a Scottish gentleman just before the Second World War who invented digital radar, microwaves. And Churchill gave that to the American government. That was used, and that was the main reason that when a submarine in 1944, 1945 surfaced, the special radars would detect the conning tower. So what the Germans did was they said, we need to be able to go up to take oxygen, but we can't put the conning tower. So we just need to put a periscope up under a schnorkel, which the Germans called it, because the radar couldn't detect it. So they created these submarines precisely to get Hitler out, because the submarine could travel all the way from Norway to Argentina without surfacing once. And that's why they were never detected. Now, the deal wasn't because it was gold or jewels. It was because of the scientists. Again, this isn't available. So it's just me telling you what my mother, what my grandfather, and American military have told me. So that's just my view from them, and that's this. When it became obvious that the Americans and the Russians and the Brits were overrunning Germany, Hitler ordered all of the key scientists to have 24/7 SS guards. And they were told, if the Allies come near you, shoot the scientists, all of them. As America, let's forget Britain and Russia, as America went through Germany, they came across technology which scared the pants off. And this was why they decided America should no longer be isolationist and America needed to rule the world, because nobody else should have this technology. So a deal was done whereby if all these scientists were given to America, Hitler could go free. Now, how do we know it's true? Because they were all given American passports, Operation Paperclip, and most of them, not all, were moved to America. That was the deal. And that put America, forget the space race, that was all nonsense. The Saturn V rocket, that was von Braun, and that was just rubbish. It really was. The scientists they wanted were doing other things. I'll give you a quick story to prove what I'm saying. When von Braun was moved out, I think it was what became Area 51, it was the Nevada desert. And they all had these huts made of wooden huts. And they literally had sawdust on the floor. And von Braun said, this is ridiculous. We are really important German scientists. I want carpet because it's cold at night and the cold is blowing up through the floorboards. So he got all the carpet salesmen in and chose a nice thick plush rug. And then the Pentagon said, you're not having carpet. You can have linoleum. And von Braun said, hang on a minute. When I worked for Hitler, I could have anything I wanted. But and the fact was, von Braun wasn't important. He was just a name. Every time there was a photograph of von Braun, he was seen holding a model of a rocket up because he was the advert to the American people, give us your tax dollars, we're going to go to the moon. The reality was those tax dollars were going elsewhere. And these very German scientists, which my mother worked with, okay, so we're talking the 1960s and 1970s. My mother was part of Operation Paperclip. She wasn't German, but she was doing a lot of the paperwork for these scientists. And the reality was that they were the ones creating the science that we have today. And I remember that you've got people like Einstein, maybe it was Einstein's wife who was intelligent, but nevertheless, who would say, I believe we can do this. So they believed it. And then they had micro processors. They had the circuitry, but then they didn't have the software. So finally, they got the software, which could be run on the computers, which then fit the theory. And that's when everything took off, because like a laser beam. They knew exactly how it would work, but they didn't have the hardware. Then they got the hardware, but they didn't have the software program. For instance, if you think about the fantastic science fiction film Star Trek, I love it. And I'm talking about the original. And if your audience can think back, and Captain Kirk would say, all stop. Okay, so Chekhov or Zulu, whoever would press the buttons and the spaceship, the Enterprise would stop. Well, that's BS, because by the time I've said to you all stop and you physically press a button, you've done about 3 light years. So you've
Yeah.
got to have a technology which now Elon Musk has been allowed. Do you see it on mainstream with the chip in the brain? So
Yeah.
you have to
Neuralink,
have a
yeah.
technology that allows an operator to communicate with a machine without physically touching it. So it's instantaneous, the speed of light.
Instantaneous.
Yeah. And that's what's been developed. That's where we are. But the public don't see that. Remember, what we get in our homes is 25 years old. Anyway, there we are.
But do you see a lot of my audience is a Christian audience? They're going to sit here and say, Neuralink, mark of the beast, anything you're putting in your body.
No, I agree. I'm a Christian.
So
Absolutely. It's the
what?
mark of the beast.
So you wouldn't take the Neuralink if you could think.
No, why would I? No, I don't. I don't. No, I wouldn't take it because of a religious standpoint. But there are plenty of people who don't have a religious standpoint who would take it. If
I
you've
see
got
him all the
20,
time I see him at a
you wouldn't
what
get
is
any
it?
Marines doing it because the Marines are really strong Christians, but you might get other branches of the American Armed Forces prepared to take it. For instance, flying a jet. Imagine if you didn't actually have to press a button to fire a missile, you didn't even have to